Whatever stage you're at with your trading, it's important to stop and gain perspective before planning your next move. Take a break from the charts and join in the discussion with our hosts, Jason Graystone and Akil Stokes, as they share insights, opinions and expertise on all things trading. Grab a coffee, pull up a chair and join the Trader Coffee Break.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Trader Coffee Break. I hope you're doing well. I'm Jason Graystone.
I'm Akil Stokes, I think.
And
right?
yeah, you're still Akil Stokes.
Darn it.
And if it's the first time you're listening, welcome. This is where traders meet, traders rant, and traders get better. So thanks for being here. Bobby's here, Orsie's here, Chris is here. Welcome, welcome. So this week came from a conversation I was having in my live trading room with one of our traders who has been known to, let's just say, bite a little bit more than he can chew, try and do too many things at once. And I don't know if it's FOMO or what, but he seems to be having this activity issue where he needs a lot of trading activity. And as a result of that, it's forcing him to talk himself into trade pattern setups that, you know, that are technically there, but not always the easiest to identify. And of course, if we all want to be consistently profitable traders, what do we need to do? We need to trade consistently, and we need to be consistent. So we want to talk about this. And I want to start by just saying there's a great book, by the way, because when you're identifying trading patterns, every system that you trade is a pattern of sorts. And there is a great book by Larry Pesavento called Trade What You See. And I don't know if you read that book. Akil's searching for it in the background. It's called Trade What You See by Larry Pesavento and Julia Souflas, something like that. And it's called Trade What You See. And there it is there, right? And the great thing about this book is they explain the reasoning and the psychology behind some of these impulse moves and the anchor moves and the, you know, these harmonic shifts in the market like ABCD patterns and things like that. And they talk about the importance of, you know, why that happens. So what we want to do as traders is we want to identify those high probability impulse moves in the market because they signify the start of a high probability move, but also because they're so stand out and they're so obvious, you're going to be able to see them time and time again, and you're not going to get into a position where you're going, well, this kind of looks like it, you know, this kind of, is it, or can I make it fit just because I want to take a trade? So that's why we're talking about what we're talking about. It is important. Akil, what do you have to say?
Yeah, first and foremost, great book. That was the first book I read that introduced me to kind of like pattern recognition, harmonic patterns, and just the general movements of the market. And I read a lot of books on technical analysis beforehand, and I just think it's a very good starter book. It's easily digestible. Yeah. It's not, there are some other ones out there that are just over your head. It's not saying they're bad books, but as a newer trader, this one is kind of dummy proof, and it gives a good kind of overall foundation, and you can always kind of dig deeper into it after that. But yeah, we're talking pre-show. I noticed that a lot with traders, and they see these things, these different patterns, and they want to go for, I guess, quantity over quality, where it's not, hey, I don't want to find the good ones, the ones that stick out to you. I want to find as many as possible, because if I find more, I can trade more. If I trade more, I can make more. Where it's actually kind of like we always say on the show, right? Less is more, right? If you pick better ones and you're consistent at picking those best ones, you may not have the same frequency, but most of the frequency that you eliminate are going to be of the bad trades anyways. You're keeping more of the good ones, or the winning ones. You're eliminating more of the bad ones, and you put yourself in a better position as a trader. So yeah, we can't force feed it. Yep.
No, but it all does come down to the fact that they are trying to see the patterns that aren't there, right? So there's a bigger issue, because there's one thing to say, oh yeah, okay, I will only look at the patterns that are really, really obvious to me, but that's not the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is you want to find patterns, and I would say you need to figure out why that is. You know, what is making you want to see the patterns that aren't there, or something that you're not going to be able to see easily going into the future. And this is what happened. The guy who Eamon's in the chat. Hello, Eamon. The guy who gave me the example, they'd basically identified the second half of a setup. Okay, and because they'd seen the second half of the setup, they then tried to find the first half of the setup to hope that it was there, so that they could then go, right, okay, it's all met. The problem with doing that is that's going to be very difficult to replicate going forward, because you're not, in real time, you're not actually seeing the market for what it is. And it's really difficult to build a plan and a system around something where you have to wait till half of the thing completes before you actually see the first part of it. And to me, it's just, you're asking for trouble. It's much easier to kind of zoom out the charts and practice identifying the really clear, easy to see patterns, and then, you know, and then just go all in on that, because that's where your consistency is going to be built from.
And what they're doing as well is they're forcing it. So it's like you're seeing the end point, which is like the answer. Like, you know, the answer is actually to follow through the pattern, but the answer is like the final part of the pattern. And then you're going backwards, right? Kind of reverse engineering it. But the problem is you're reverse engineering it in a way that is forcing it to work. So it's like something may be off, right? If we're talking specific, like harmonic and ratio type patterns, right? They form with a different series of different Fibonacci levels being hit in a very particular order. So there are rules where like a 618 has to be hit for this leg, then a 618 has to be hit for that leg, and it completes there. And what they'll do is they'll see like half the pattern, they'll go back, they'll draw on the first part, like this is the final piece. As long as I make this X to A work, then the pattern will be mine. And then the X to A doesn't work. But instead of being like, oh man, it doesn't work, they're like, you know, what if I just move it down a little bit? Oh, it works now. And then you see these things where I'm having a brain fart right now, it's called, but you're seeing what you want to see, where you're forcing yourself to get the answer that you want to have. That way you can do what you want to do. And that's not a proper, or like you said, a sustainable way of trading. You're just going to get into trouble.
No, absolutely. So what do you do? You know, what do you recommend you do if you're teaching someone to trade ABCD patterns? If you're teaching people to identify any kind of impulse in the market, like where do you start? How do you guide someone, and where's the place to start with that?
Well, place to start with anything in the market is just understanding the basics, right? The first thing that we teach as far as technical analysis in our courses is just like the basic ebbs and flows of price action, extensions, retracements. And I know a lot of traders want to skip past that. They want to overlook it because they're just like, oh, I don't see how I can directly make money doing this. But it really is the foundation to everything you're going to do, because an AB equals CD pattern is nothing more than an extension, a retracement, and another extension, right? A ratio pattern, Gartley's, Bats, ciphers, there's nothing more than kind of an extension, a series of retracements, and then another failed extension and stuff like that. You know, even your more kind of classic patterns, your flags, your pennants, your head and shoulders, they encompass the same basic moves that the market does, right? Because the market only does, right, three things: up, down, and sideways. So exactly. If you have an understanding of that first, you then look at the market a different way. Instead of kind of looking at the market to kind of find the answer, you're actually, like you said, reading the market for what it gives you. And you're like, oh, it did this move. Oh, that happens to also be this. And then you can go along the rest of the process, right? I know, you know, you did all the pattern training in our courses, right? I know you laid it out in a specific checklist, right? And that's, if you have it in the training, right, why not follow through with it in real life?
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yes.
Easier said than done, which is why the next thing that I would say is it's important to be around good traders, be around people, get accountable, and have someone to bounce your ideas off of. Because I'm not saying that, ultimately it's down to trade what you see. And I'm no one to say that that's a wrong pattern and you can't make money doing that, because you probably can. But experience tells me, working with thousands of traders, that most people can't generate consistent profits from random noise and chaos in the market. They have to have something that's very consistent to them, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do. You're trying to have pattern recognition in your toolbox, which is one of the most important things in trading. And how can you have pattern recognition if it's just a load of mess and you're trying to fit it in every now and then? So being able to bounce ideas and sense check and say, look, I've seen this pattern, just like we did in the room today, where he threw the chart up and I said, man, I can't even see that. That's not one that I would look at. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you can't make money from it, but very inconsistent. How I can't even see it. I can't even, and I could see what you've done. You've seen an obvious second part and you've tried to force the first part. Think about this. Think about a bit more obvious sore thumb. We call it sore thumb moves, right? It stands out like a sore thumb. Those are the moves you want to start with, at least. Even if 5 years down the line, you can really start drilling in and start, you can really attack all different types of impulse legs. But at the beginning, don't make life hard for yourself, and have some people around you that can just sense check or say, well, I can't see it. Or I would not classify that as an impulse leg. Here's some examples of mine. And at least you can get some guidance from people who are starting to generate consistency in their trading. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's so important, the ability to be around like-minded individuals and ones that are going to be honest with you, because we always talk about one of the biggest kind of the hardships in trading is that there's not we're lone wolves. Like, there's not a lot of communities out there. You're typically by yourself in your basement with the lights off and just kind of doing your own thing. And there's no one to really check up on you. There's no one to hold you accountable. There's no one to kind of bounce ideas off of. I know when I first started trading, it was like that. It was me, and I'd like Google stuff on the internet and I'd be like, it kind of looks like that. I guess that works. I would have killed to have a group of traders around me to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? Hey, what do you think about this? And it really wasn't until I found myself an accountability partner, my buddy Roy, who we were kind of going through the struggle at the same time. And we started doing that. We started being like, hey, what do you think about this? Keo, that's not really that. Yeah, you're right. I forced it. Like, because you catch yourself doing the dumb stuff. But when you don't have a community or a partner like that, no one's going to keep you in check. And you go on doing whatever you want to do. And if you're doing it wrong, that's a bad thing. But yeah, also
community, you don't know if it's you don't know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You don't even know if you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen all types of stuff. I remember TradingView, for example, where we had to contact them and have them build out a specific tool for the cipher pattern, because we saw chart after chart after chart of people just drawing it in the wrong way and having no idea. Yeah. And it's like, you don't necessarily blame those traders because you don't know what you don't know. You get your information from somewhere, right? That unconscious incompetence thing. But it's like, there were so many traders out there doing things the wrong way. We even had, I remember, a Facebook group before just to talk trading. And people are on there giving the wrong ratios and the wrong rules for different stuff. And like, newer traders come in there and they're like, oh yeah, it must be right because this guy posts 10 times a day, so he's an expert. And it's just the spreading of false information. You don't know what you don't know as a new trader. So you have to find the right people to kind of share those ideas, learn that truth, and then make those adjustments. And that's, again, much easier said than done, especially in the internet forum world and whatnot.
I can't remember what the name of that dude was on TradingView back in the day, but he was always at number one by hundreds of thousands. I think his name was Sonny or something like that. And I watched one of his videos once, and he was basically saying, if you don't know what's going to happen definitely in the market next, you shouldn't be trading, and all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, wow, these guys, he's getting thousands of following every day. People just blind leading the blind, and it's tragedy, absolute tragedy. Funnily enough, he's not there anymore, but
it all catches up to you, right? There's a reason we've been in this industry for so long and have maintained versus the the ones that come in for a few months or a year and then you never see them again. You can only fake it for so long.
The saddest thing is they earn way more money than us in education because they're selling the dream.
That is the thing, man.
But anyway, look, I will round this off kind of by saying, if you are struggling with this and you're struggling with consistency, I would just go back to what Akil says at the beginning, and it's start with something easier. Start with understanding movement in price. Read the book, Trade What You See by Larry Pesavento. Great book for beginner traders. Start to understand and be comfortable with reading price and support and resistance and, extension moves and retracements, and understanding that and the relationship between all of those things before you start going too ahead of yourself. You could just start with candlestick formations and start with something where you haven't got to have something as subjective as an impulse move. That all comes, and the more reps you put into the market, the more time you spend looking at charts. It's like building a muscle. You start training your pattern recognition. You start to see things. You start to know the markets a lot better. It's like seeing someone every day. You start to know their breathing patterns and know their behavioral patterns, and you start to see things that happen and things that pop out and things that don't. And it's just a time thing. It just comes after time. Cool. Any points? Eamon has shown up, so I'm just going to name Eamon. Eamon's the guy this is all about, right? Fair play to rocking up. He's so... he came onto an accountability session, not last week, the week before, really opened up, said, look, I've made this mistake, I'm making these mistakes. Hats off, you're only going to get better from doing that. And he rocks up, owns his errors, owns his mistakes, and top man. I'm enjoying working with Eamon. We'll get there in the end. Bobby says, dangerous game, follow the plan, all these good points. Awesome. Well, I think that rounds it off nicely. I just reiterate what Akil says and what this show's about. Sometimes just do less. Do less is to do more. You're only going to get better from having knowing what you're doing rather than trying to do too much at once and then being average or not even good at what you're trying to do. So that's really the message for this one. And Akil, anything else to add?
Yeah, one more thing. Just one of the favorite quotes that I've heard and kind of keeps me grounded is understanding that the advanced is nothing more than a mastery of the basics. So if you want to do anything advanced, it just means you're mastering the basics. You're doing the same things. You've just acquired enough knowledge, enough reps to kind of do them in a way that you didn't even think of before because you didn't have that capacity. So whatever it is you're trading on a chart, or it could be fundamentally, or whatever you're doing in life, take time to master the basics, because it is those same things that's going to allow you to do what you ultimately want to do, and you can't do it without it. So write that down. Think about it every time you want to skip ahead and do too much. Like, master the basics. And Jason and myself, we always go back each and every year to basics in one form or another and just kind of refresh, and we still learn little things each time, which is helpful. So
yeah
keep it up.
And we're fortunate enough to be able to teach the basics a lot as well, which really, really helps, because when you're teaching things, there's not much that reinforces it more than that. So go and check out our free training, guys. Go and check out the basics. Go and check out the Cornerstone and all the Emergence program, all the free training that we've got to offer. We really do hammer the basics on those because it's the most important thing. And I love finishing on a quote. So that was awesome. And it's a good one for me as well. I love that. Never heard that. Until next time, do less to do more. And we'll catch you then.
Thanks for joining us for the Trader Coffee Break. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to never miss a live discussion. Follow our hosts on social media. And remember, do nothing to gain perspective on everything. See you next week.